No. The time is 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting, the September meeting of the Richland County Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Kalish, would you please take the roll?
Carroll. Murphy Lopez.
Here.
Van Landwick.
Here.
Seat.
Here.
McKee.
Here.
Brewer.
Here.
Watt.
Here.
Joshua. Glassburner. Rudersdorf. Dentis.
Here.
Kirk.
Here.
Cosgrove. Frank.
Here.
Severson. Williamson. Huey.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
And McGuire. You have 19 total. Out of 21 year old.
Thank you. I can't see the screen behind me. Do we have someone lined up for the invocation?
Levi Smith was scheduled.
Okay, and is he up here? Behind me? Need some help.
I do not see him.
Okay. Let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Kalish, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
We have a 30-point agenda. Please, would you read the agenda, please?
Call to order, invocation, pledge of allegiance, approve agenda, approve minutes of the August 17th meeting, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Mike and Brenda Gillingham in the town of Marshall, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Shane and Sherry Lee Wilkinson in the town of Orion, report on petitions for zoning amendments received since the last county board session, report on rezoning petitions recommended for denial by the Zoning and Land Information Committee, a resolution approving a municipal advisory agreement with Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals LLC, a resolution authorizing not to exceed $1,050,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes for capital improvement projects, a resolution approving the purchase of 26 new computers and associated software licensing and warranties for the Department of Health and Human Services, a resolution establishing a tentative plan for redistricting, resolution approving the purchase of a new truck and body build, including snowplow for the highway department, resolution approving the purchase of a replacement squad car with insurance money and budgeted funds, a resolution approving a grant application by the Richland County Veteran Service Office, resolution granting an easement across the Pine River Recreation Trail, resolution amending resolution number 19-135 regarding Pine Valley Wage Plan amendments, Pine Valley Pay Plan, resolution establishing premium pay rates for Pine Valley employees, a resolution amending and reissuing the relocation order for the Tri-County Airport, resolution amending resolution number 21-83 regarding the petition of the Secretary of Transportation for airport improvement aid, resolution approving a roof replacement project at the historic courthouse, resolution approving the purchase of 2 Buffalo Terra Station 51210 RH storage devices, a resolution approving a request for proposal guidance regarding specification design for an emergency radio and tower project, resolution celebrating Hispanic American Heritage Month, appointments to committees, various boards, commissions, and committees, reports from the administrator, correspondence, and adjournment.
Thank you. You've heard the agenda. What's your pleasure? Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. McKee. All those in favor of adopting this agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously, the agenda is approved. The minutes of the August 17th meeting were also distributed. You've looked those over. Could I have a motion one way or the other on those minutes? Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Seconded by Mrs. Ruderstone. All those in favor of the August 17th minutes as published, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Brings us down to number 6 on our agenda, an ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Mike and Brenda Gillingham in the town of Marshall. Mr. Kalish.
This will be ordinance number 21-24. The following 5.6 acre parcel belonging to Mike and Brenda Gillingham and in the town of Marshall is hereby rezoned from General Agricultural and Forestry District to the Agricultural Residential District. This ordinance shall be effective on September 21st, 2021, and is being offered to you by the Zoning and Land Information Committee.
Thank you, and what's your pleasure? Linda? And do I have a second? Mr. McKee? Do we have background here? Mr. Bindle?
Background on this is that they are split from their homes and accessory buildings within the rest of their land.
Thank you. You've heard the ordinance. You've heard the background. What's your pleasure? Or I guess we do have it on the table. I'll take a vote. All those in favor of this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Number 7, an ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Shane and Sherry Lee Wilkinson in the town of Lorient. Mr. Kalish.
Yeah, this will be ordinance number 21-25. With the following 5.0 acre parcel belonging to Shane and Sherry Wilkinson in the town of Orion is hereby rezoned from General Agricultural and Forestry District to the Agricultural and Residential District. This order shall be effective on September 21st, 2021, and is being offered to you by the Zoning and Land Information Committee.
You've heard the ordinance. What's your pleasure? Way back, Chad. And second, Ms. Jenkins. Seconds. And do I have a background on this, please?
Background on this is the applicants are creating a 5 acre lot. You do it in house.
Thank you. You've heard the ordinance and the background. What's your pleasure? Will you vote yes in favor? All those in favor? Yes. Or aye. Opposed? Ordinance is adopted. Number 8. Report on petitions for zoning amendments received since the last county board session.
There's a petition by Stephanie Griffin and getting a Mullen, rezone 13.15 acres from egg forestry to residential, section 3, down to Aiken. And there's a petition by Bruce Wheeler and Stephanie Gia, rezone 0.18 acres from residential one to commercial. Section 30, down to this.
And a report on rezoning recommended for denial by zoning and land information.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Number 10. A resolution approving a municipal advisory agreement with Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals LLC. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-19. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the municipal advisory agreement with Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals LLC, a copy of which is on file in the county clerk, accessible on the county's website, and be it further resolved that the county board chair Marty Brewer and the county administrator Clinton Langrick are hereby offer municipal advisory agreement on behalf of the county. The result of this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to the personnel committee.
Resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. McKee?
Second.
And a second by Mr.
I can't. You gotta turn that shit off.
This is the short-term borrowing, I'll call it, that we've done now. This would be the second year that we've done this, and I think it's worked rather well. It does let us do some things in terms of capital expenditure, but it's not so long and drawn out as many of our other borrowing efforts have been. So, and this is with Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals, that would be Carol Worth. Yes, sir. Yes.
Will we approve the advisory to it?
Well, I'm not sure why it's in this order. Maybe Mr. Langret could shed some light on that.
My mistake in having it filed on the agenda. Presumptive that yes, without going forward with the agreement, that we're not entering into the contract, so. Appropriate if you want to withhold on this until we are sure that we have 3/4 vote necessary to do the borrowing. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Then I think a tabling motion would be in order. Just give me a tabling motion, Mr. McKee, and Steve can second it. All those in favor of tabling until after we take up the next thing on the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's tabled until number 11. A resolution authorizing not to exceed $1,050,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes for capital improvement projects. Mr. Kalish, do you have reading to do?
Yeah, so this will now be resolution number 21-119. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the county borrow an amount not to exceed $1,050,000 by issuing its general obligation promissory notes for the public purpose of financing capital improvement projects, including county trunk road improvements, a salt shed for the highway department, acquisition of equipment for the sheriff's department, and information systems projects. There being and there hereby is levied on all taxable property in the county a direct annual tax in such years and in such amounts as are sufficient to pay when due the principal and interest on such notes. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage and publication, and this resolution is being offered to by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I move for approval.
thank you, Mr. C. Do I have a second? Yes. Mrs. Ru- I'm sorry, Mark, you gotta be faster than that when you're off-site, I guess. You may. Mrs. Glassmatter is asking a question.
Last year we had the similar short-term borrowing. Clearly, the time frame and the amount, and so I'm just curious as to why done in such years and in such years.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Langred to answer it if you can.
Yes, we're looking to use the same type of a timeline with borrowing, and this money will come to us in November and be paid back in March timeframe. And then the second part of that I overlooked, I apologize.
How come no itemized list?
The itemized list.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Excuse me, not itemized list, just what impacts us as on what.
Our overall debt service levy is going to maintain the same levy amount as last year because engaging in this borrowing, we inflated our debt levy ceiling. So in using the same dollar amount, we're maintaining the same dollar threshold, and with our equalized value increasing, our millage rate should actually come down a little bit in regards to keeping the ceiling the same. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Now, I will advise you that the approval of this resolution, this borrowing resolution, has to have a 3/4 vote, 3/4 majority among the members present. So I will ask Mr. Kalish to call the roll on this, please.
Mr. Chair, just one point before,
Yes,
I apologize, but it's actually members seated, so we'll need a 3/4 vote of all members seated, including the ones that are absent tonight.
Yes, okay. Make that clear. But including the ones on virtual, on WebEx.
Correct, correct.
Those people are seated.
Yeah, those that are not in attendance though, that is, we need 16 yes votes to make it carry.
Right, so I'll ask Mr. Kalish to call the roll.
Carol,
Aye.
Murphy Wolcott,
Aye.
Van Landewit,
Aye.
Seat,
Aye.
McKee, Brewer,
Aye.
Luck,
Aye.
Manning, Gotcho,
Aye.
Glassbrenner, Rudolph,
Aye.
Gentis,
Aye.
Turk,
Aye.
Cosgrove, Frank,
Aye.
Severson,
Yes.
Williamson, Tui,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Paul, McGuire. You have 19 out of 21.
Thank you. So the resolution is adopted. Now, we can go back to number 10. And would you please, Mr. Turk, thank you. And do I have a second? I'll second it. I can do that. And bring it back off the table. Let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Number 10 is before us, a resolution approving the agreement with Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals. Now, did we have a motion and a second on that? Yes, so it's before us then. Everyone understands what we're doing here. Okay, let's take a vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Motion, the resolution is adopted. Agenda item number 12. A resolution approving the purchase of 26 new computers and associated software licensing and warranties for the Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-121. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Health and Human Services Department to purchase 26 new computers, 24 of those being laptops and 2 being desktop computers, along with the associated software licensing and warranties for each at a total cost not to exceed $60,000. Be it further resolved that funding or reimbursement for these purchases will be obtained as follows. $11,538 from computer replacement funding that was included in the 2021 budget. $11,538 from Wisconsin Department of Health Services COVID funding. $20,769 from CCS reimbursement funding. $2,308 from crisis reimbursement funding. $2,308 from a state opioid response grant. $2,308 from the treatment alternatives and diversions grant. And then $9,231 from the 2020 Wisconsin Department of Children's and Family Allocation carryover funds. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the County Board Supervisor members of the Health and Human Services Board.
For the resolution, Mr. Van Landijk makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mrs. Rudolph seconds. Anyone want to speak to this? Steve, Carol?
Yeah, I just have a question. What typically happens with the old computers?
Okay, I will refer then to our IS manager, Barb Scout.
The computers are typically recycled through, they're handed down to other departments sometimes, or they're used throughout the Health and Human Services Department. If a user is, not as high-end user, perhaps the more use that computer until the end of its life. We have computers in the Health and Human Services Department that are 9+ years old.
And, Barb, what's the normal use, lifespan of a?
Recommended is 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you've heard the resolution. We have a second. Any more questions? Sounds like the funding sources have been really well documented and researched and established. So all those in favor of this resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Number 13. A resolution establishing a tentative plan for redistricting. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-122. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that they accept the tentative plan for redistricting. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the County Board Supervisor members of the Redistricting Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. Cosgrove makes the motion, seconded by Mr. McKee. Right there in the middle. Okay, redistricting. Didn't catch us by surprise, but we didn't have a lot of time to do it. Of the census delay. So I know that the redistricting committee has worked hard and long and efficiently. And this plan is before us. Are there any questions on the changes, Mr. Frank?
We do have a short presentation on the changes
Okay.
before and after. Lynn and Garrett have put something together in the work they've done. So we'd like to present that now before we move forward.
If you please, go ahead.
Okay, so the redistricting process started with the release of the census data that came to us around August 15th. As Marty alluded to, the release of this data was severely delayed compared to past years. The redistricting process usually starts at the beginning of the year, so not in August like it did this time around. Our 2021 census numbers indicated a county population of 17,304. This is a decrease of 717 from the 2011 census numbers, which were 8,021. So what you do when you get that target the overall population is you try to achieve that ideal or target population by for each supervisory district by calculating the total number of people we have in the population, so the 17,304, and dividing that by the number of supervisory districts we have, which is 21. So when you take the number, the 17,304 and divide it by the 21 supervisory districts, you're left with a goal population of 824 residents per supervisory district. A deviation of 5% above or below that number is acceptable for the plan to meet all the requirements it needs to. So the redistricting committee was appointed at the August County Board meeting by resolution 21-117. And that resolution specified that the committee be composed of 3 county board supervisors, 3 citizen members, and then 3 municipal clerks, 1 from each village, township, and city. So when the committee met, the committee did follow the adopted guidelines when giving Lynn and I staff direction to complete the maps. First guideline was that we were to refrain from using previous election results or any political demographic data when making the maps. The second guideline was to respect political subdivisions and keep municipalities intact to the fullest extent possible. The third one was to make districts contiguous, compact, and not irregularly shaped. And the fourth one was to never take into consideration the address of incumbents. So while Lynn and I worked on that map, the redistricting committee did meet on August 26, 9/9/9/16, and then immediately following the public hearing, which was held yesterday at 6 p.m. at HHI. So aside from the committee members being present and the local press being present, there was only one citizen who appeared with questions for the committee. There were no further changes to the tentative plan as a result of any information that was received at the public hearing. So what the plan you're seeing in front of you is also called plan number 5. That's because as you rework these plans, you make new plans, and this is the plan that the redistricting committee is bringing forth to you. So if you look at your iPads, you will have a file that says, I believe it's labeled public hearings, and that has a nice cover sheet on it. Yep, right up that you see up here. And then if you scroll down one more page, you're going to see an overview of the county and the supervisory districts. The yellow circles are those changes that were made based on the population changes and how we dealt with things. So I'm going to turn this over to Lynn and I'm going to have her explain that, and then I'll come back to you.
Excuse me, Gary, can you identify the members of the committee perhaps?
Sure. County Board of Supervisors, the chair of the committee was Bob Frank, and then Vice Chair Rochelle Murphy Lopez and Chad Cosgrove. Our three citizen members were Dorothy Thompson, John Poole, and Alan Lentz. And then the three clerks, municipal clerks, were City Clerk Treasurer Aaron Joyce, the Village of Boaz, Susie Hardy, the clerk there, and then the Town of Eagle, Bobby and Joplin is the township clerk.
Good word.
Can you hear me? So if we go into the upper left-hand, first yellow circle, we had to create a ward and another ward in Sylvan Township, which makes 3 wards in Sylvan Township to accommodate district supervisory district number 1. And then the next yellow circle over to the right, we were able to remove ward number 2 from Marshall Township, so we kept that township intact. And then the next yellow circle in District 9, we had to create another ward in Dayton Township. And then lastly, in Buena Vista Township, to make the districts 19 and 20 more compact than what they have been, we had to change those boundaries.
Does anyone have any questions about that? The page that follows the chart that you're seeing up there is the statistics page. So what that pretty much gives you is the numerical equivalent of moving individuals around. You can see on the column there that has the deviation. So that just shows that we are above or below that 5% deviation. I should address the false errors that you're seeing on there underneath the contiguous column. We talked about that as a committee a couple different times. This is actually a bug in the software. The software we use is WiseLR. That's a state software. It's not something that we purchase or we make up. All municipalities use this in the state. And, you know, I've talked to LTSB about this a couple different times, and I was hoping the bug would have been cleared up so I could have given you a clean copy of this chart from them without those false readings there, but they're not cleaned up. So that I can't fix that. It's a software issue. And I don't think I won't go into detail. The rest of the numbers you can see there, but this is just how the moving people around translates numerically.
Thank you. So you've looked at it. Any further, Bob?
It's one more comment there. I want to thank Garrett and Lynn for going through that. The district committee is not done yet. We still have a couple more meetings to go to get everything finalized. But it's this step that we need now to move forward to make sure we meet all the timelines and deadlines that we have. So thank you.
Okay. All right, you've heard the explanation. You've heard the need for reasonable dispatch here. I think I'll call a vote. Yes, sir, Mr. Van Weyden. But we've had a motion and a second, I believe. Yeah. So I'm just going to call for the vote. All those in favor of forwarding this tentative plan for redistricting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we move forward. Number 14, a resolution approving the purchase of a new truck and body build, including snowplow for the highway department. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-123. Now therefore be it resolved that the funds for these purchases are on the county highway department's account in the 2021 county budget. And be it further resolved that this resolution will be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you, that's same members of the highway, maybe not zoning and land information, maybe my apologies.
Mr. Cosgrove, are you making the motion? Thank you. And a second by Mr. Severson. And I think our highway commissioner is here. Mr. Josh. Thank you.
So basically, we want to do this to continue to update our fleet trucks, or certain trucks is starting to deteriorate at a pretty good rate. We're spending more time in the shop than they're on the road. So given the current supply and demand of trucks out there right now, the faster we can update the trucks, the better off we're going to do. If the money we can't trucks.
Will there be a problem getting the truck due to the shortage of chips and all that?
Because of the shortage of chips and parts and everything, we are actually delayed until next year before we see these trucks. And then next year, ordering trucks may be.
Gonna have trucks. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd offer just to clarify, to keep our consistencies with the resolutions, to exchange that we have a now therefore be it resolved that we're doing the purchase of these vehicles versus the line of whereas the highway department is seeking approval. That it say now there be it for resolved, there's approval of the following purchase.
Okay, can we accept that as an amendment then?
Make a motion to amend.
Okay, motion to amend, second by McKee. You realize what we're doing, we're changing it, we're saying we're gonna buy it, basically. All those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you have that amendment. That's the window. Yes. Right. So now we're voting on the amended resolution. We're buying a truck. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted. A resolution approving the purchase of a replacement squad car with insurance money and budgeted funds. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-124. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted to the Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee and the Sheriff to purchase one 2021 Ford Interceptor utility body to replace the totaled Squad 9 from Philback Ford in the amount of $34,969.50. And be it further resolved that the total cost of carrying out this resolution in the amount shall be paid from the funds listed above. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution being offered to the Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. Severson and Mrs. Glassman, seconds. Thank you. All right, you've heard the resolution. It's on the table. Any questions? Hearing none, I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. You didn't have to say anything. I didn't see you back there. I'm sorry. We always would like to hear from you. But since we've already approved it, probably you should just let it go now. Okay, good while you're ahead. All right, all right. Thank you. We're so efficient. Number 16, resolution approving a grant application by the Richland County by the Veteran Service Office. Okay, the Richland County's Veteran Service Office. I think that should read, Mr. Kalish.
And this will be resolution number 21-125. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Richland County Veteran Service Officer to apply for a grant from the Wisconsin Department of Veteran Affairs under section 45.82 sub 2 of Wisconsin State Statute for calendar year 2022. And approval is also granted for the Richland County Veteran Service Office to enter into the contract required by the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs in order to obtain this grant. And be it further resolved that the county administrators hereby authorized and directed to sign on behalf of Richland County the grant application and such contract documents which are necessary to obtain the grant. Be it further resolved that this resolution is effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the county board supervisor members of the Veteran Service Commission.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure, Mr. Van Landijk and Mrs. Call? Seconds. Yes, sir, Mr. Sieg.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I know recently, in the Wisconsin County's magazine, and I'm sure our fellow board members saw the article about
various organizational, financial improvements to counties. One of which was approval by the finance committee of an increase grants to veteran service officers. And for populations of 20,000 or less, that increase is $750, which would provide for $9,350 in the grant. So checked with this with the Department of Administration, and they confirmed to me that has been approved. The governor signed the budget. Well, I'm wondering, just using a summatic method here and asking a question, would it be prudent for us to somehow change the wording of this resolution so that it might read something like this? A grant no less than $8,500, and in addition, $750 as indicated by the vote of the Joint Finance Committee, for a total of $9,350 is available for the 2022 budget. I would ask Mr. Wendell if there is a practical answer to this, since it is eligible for another $750 if we ask for it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I speak to this? This is Karen from the Veteran Service Office.
you may. Thank you. Go right
So I
ahead.
reached out, thank you. I reached out to the senator's office, and he did confirm that it was approved for the $9,350. However, when I contacted the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs, they said there is no statement at this time. There is no verbiage. They have had no direction as far as how they will distribute that money, and so there is no timeline for it. I did inform the county administrator of this, that as of right now, the $9,350, the $850 increase, there's just no wordage. So as of this point, we are guaranteed the $8,500 as per every other year, but there is no timeline for that additional $850. So my committee voted that if it does appear that it should go into the salary line item.
Mr. Chairman. Ms.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Knott. And
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Knott is correct that the Department of Veterans Affairs did not yet have information confirming it. This is a conditional introduction to the resolution. I'm saying if available, we're asking for it. And it does not in any way contradict or negate the request for $8,500. It merely says if the additional $750 is available, we'd like to have that. I think if we just ask for $8,500 and $9,350 is available, maybe we'll only get the $8,500. So I'm only introducing that as a potentiality. It does not in any way change the essence of the resolution. If the $750 is available, we'll get the $8,500. If, however, it is available, then we may get the $9,350. Now, I realize that $750 doesn't sound like very much money, but in the Veteran Service Office, it has a very limited budget. And $750 goes a long ways toward helping a needy veteran or two or three who are unemployed who need help with groceries or rent or
other needs in the community. So I.
Well, Mr. Steve, you've made your point and you've offered an amendment. Now, I'll accept the second on that amendment, then I'm going to ask court counsel to rule on the applicability of the amendment. So do I have a second to that amendment?
Very serious and second.
Harry Severson seconds, okay. Now, Mr. Wendell, please, give me a ruling.
So, I have not seen any language either indicating this. Given that it's only been through the legislative process without having rules propagated for how that spending is going to happen. My preference would be to have a resolution addressing that amount specifically. That being said, you are correct, it does not change the substance of it. I don't have any particular objection to including that in this, but my preference would remain that that be addressed separately.
So, Mr. Van Lande, maybe you could comment. As chair of the Veterans Committee.
Yes, what I'd like to do is ask for comment on that, since he's had some background.
With the board will, you have authorization for your administrator to sign it, to take any of the grants as well, knowing that it's in your folks' intent and the best interest of the county to entertain the additional monies that we would have for the grant, the signature authority. I would be looking to apply for the additional funds. If there was a specified grant requirement that required additional resolution language, then we could bring it back to you folks.
Okay, so Clint, I think you said all is not lost. If we don't get it right now, we can always come back. Is that what you said?
If it's specified that we have to come back, otherwise as the grant signature authority on behalf of the county, I would pursue trying to get the full amount that we could get from the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Okay. Okay, we have an amendment before us. You've heard the reasons for the amendment, you've heard the reasons that makes it perhaps simpler not with the amendment. But I think Clint said all is not lost, so I'm gonna call for a vote on the amendment. I'm not sure how I wanna vote, but all those in favor of this amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
I think we have to take a roll call on this amendment and so we'll read the amendment and then Clerk Kalish will take the roll. Please read the amendment or the total resolution with the amendment. Someone have it?
Yeah, well, I can, here's what I have in my notes, I guess it was. I have to the first part of this where it says grants not exceed, to say grants no less than $8,500 in addition to the $750, total that may be possible for a total of $9,350 for the 2022 budget. I can wordsmith that a little better, but is that the point that you were trying to get across on? That's acceptable for an amended resolution?
That's correct. That's correct. I have available to client that said that you can work with that.
Mr. Whitnell, did you have a comment?
I would just point out, the lawyers are notoriously bad at math, but I get 9250 for 750.
It's an additional $850.
All right, we're calling a roll on the amendment. Those in the first vote will be in favor.
Okay, Carol,
No.
Murphy Lopez,
No.
Landler,
No.
Singh, McKee,
No.
Brewer,
Aye.
what?
No.
Manning? Is that a no? Gotcho? Glassburner?
No.
Redistricting,
No.
Jentis. Kirk,
No.
Cosgrove, Frank. No. Severson,
Yes.
Williamson, Cooley,
no,
Nelson.
Yes.
Yes for Nelson, Paul. And McGuire.
No.
Okay, motion to amend fails.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a vote then on the original motion to apply for the grant. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? All right, the motion and the resolution is adopted. The motion carries. A resolution granting an easement to cross the Pine River Recreation Trail. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-126. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that will grant an easement to co-development across the Pine River Recreational Trail. Be it further resolved that this easement will be recorded at the Register of Deeds, and be it further resolved that the County Administrator, Clinton Langreich, is authorized to sign any paperwork necessary on behalf of the county, and be it further resolved that except as otherwise stated above, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the county board members of the Parks Commission.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mrs. Rudestorff and Mr. Nacho. Yeah, okay. We have the resolution. And this begs some discussion, Mr. Frank.
Now, I guess my question, description of where it is good, but we give you a better idea exactly where it is, and not picking up on where the parcel ranges are.
I'll ask Mr. Severson if he could fill us in on that, or maybe Mr. Cole, it's up there too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Map that you're seeing that's posted on the screen above you there is a map that Cole has provided us for that. And the description is right. I provided an aerial view map here that was distributed to your table of the area. Some questions you said,
Mr. Cole, are you gonna help us out here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Thank you.
This is the triangle portion we're talking about right here. This little triangle here. When the railroad comes through the Ashley Manor Island, they cut off that triangle portion from this 40. I have a potential buyer now. That I've got an agreement with him, but he insists upon my title company giving us an easement across that land. My parents and co-developed bought this land in 1952. At that time, easements across the railroad was implied. And there's a legal term, and there's two legal terms for that, but I forgot what they were. And as soon as the bike trail people come across, and an ordinance made it illegal for us to access this land other than agricultural. We used to store equipment over there, and we did farming at one time, long time ago. I'm asking for a 75-foot easement across here. And there'll be some question here why a 75-foot. Right here, there's an electrical box of the cities. And this is where my gate is, 75 feet from here to here will give us access to that gate. That's where we always had access is through here. Okay, did I explain it?
Yeah, while you're up there, Mr. Cole, has anyone talked to you then about extending a right of way over to some county owned property to the left there?
Okay, yes, that's been mentioned to me, but I can't do that. Because I got an agreement with my potential buyer, okay? To sell him the land. Okay, I can't, I don't think I can violate that. Right? And I don't think you don't want me to break the contract to give you an easement, right? That's what it takes. That's what it happens, breaking the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The buyer is buying that triangle.
yeah, well, yeah, it's an island. It's part of the 40, so I have to sell it as part of the 40, and yet it's an island too. I'm in between a rock and a hard place, you can't sell an island. And so I have to sell it as part of the 40.
Okay,
I'll step out of the light here.
thank you, Alan. Enjoyed many, auctions down at the Cole property over the years. So
I think you all know who the potential buyer is, right?
I think so. Does anyone? Well, not my place to say. Yes, sir.
Mike Molina.
Yes, Michael.
I have the property immediately south of there, and I was checking this morning, and that and 3 other crossings of the Pine River Trail within a quarter-mile of Spring Creek there. All of them are at grade, and on both sides of the old railroad, there are ditches which are uncrossable. So I'm suspecting that those crossings were put in 150 years ago when the railroad was put through. So is it true that the county, when they obtained the Pine River Trail, that none of us have legal right to easements across that?
Got me. Mr. Wendell, do you have a comment?
I would need to know the details of how that property was conveyed. I had been contacted about this, but I did not get sufficient information. So regardless of the outcome of the vote tonight, I'm gonna have some questions that I would need answered as part of assuring that the county does its part properly. I'll add to the list.
Is that Mr. Steve? Ruminating? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I think it's prudent to have this further research by Port Council. My understanding from memory, having been on the Parks Commission for a number of years, was that the railroad conveyed this to Richland County for the purpose of developing a recreational trail, and that its use would be limited only to that. And it was conveyed as it is without allowing for any change in its use. Now, I don't know specifically about allowing for a new crossing. No, that the previous crossing did a lot of research, land use regarding that. And I think it is very prudent to refer this to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Mr. Frank?
So my question is, if an easement is approved here, are there conditions for crossings? Is it gonna be 75 feet wide? Is it gonna be drainage ditches? Is this gonna be a, maintenance access? So what are the requirements to create that road where that passing lane is gonna be a dirt trail, which I don't think it would be, but, I'm not sure what those would be either. I think we need to make sure that that's good. One, both for the bike trail and for the people having the easement, because they get across and use that service there.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Mr. Severson, I'm gonna call on you and throw your,
I just was under the opinion that if we were to grant easement to cross the bike trail at both core development property, the 76 foot easement, why the county could not get an easement from
the bike trail to the corner of where our county property is up at. You know, in exchange for something nice, because like Mr. Lee alluded to, there's ditches on both sides and it's pretty level across there. Mr. Cole has got his property that could be advantageous for the county. Don't pursue something like that, and not both of our interests.
Okay, Mr. Cole. The way things are drifting right now, it looks like this is gonna be referred. Now, tell me why we have to act on it tonight. Okay. That gives us two more meetings. One more meeting, well, October, November, doesn't it?
We usually don't meet in November. We usually don't meet in November.
Yeah, but maybe we will. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Cole. Grab a mic there so everyone can, we've got people that are on WebEx.
Let me make one more comment. Where we cross now, always crossed for the last 50 years, that's level there. Part of the 75-foot is a pitch line. That's what takes up part of the 75-foot. Another part of the 75-foot electrical box is sitting. North side of my fence. So actually, we got 40 foot there for the electrical box in the corner fence for the leaves. 75 foot. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Really important.
Go ahead.
I have no idea what my potential buyers are doing. Probably nothing.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. C, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the best expert on this locally, who knows the history and knows the terms and conditions of the use of the right of way is Steve Colston. Been with that for many years and now he's retired. I'm sure that someone could talk to Steve and he would put you in the right direction. And probably would know if there are other opportunities for Mr. Cole's question.
Well, thank you, Mr. C. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last thing, I guess my other concern would be, I'm not opposed easement, for that. I just want to look out what is in the best interest of Richland County. That's what I was elected to do. And I like Al. I've spent a lot of time with Al growing up. He's a mentor of mine. Nothing against what's going on. My other concern would be, we have a landowner further on down the trail who accesses the bike trail for agriculture use. And that trail gets damaged by tires, mud, there's ruts. And county tax dollars have to pay to fix that. And right now, there's no anywhere written down on this resolution, I see on maintenance that crossing. So could there potentially be tire ruts that would be, 2 feet deep or a foot deep, and that bicycles would hit it, and it would fall, or who's gonna maintain that?
But I will ask you a question. Was this not acted on and forwarded to us by the Parks Committee?
It was discussed in Parks Commission, but without this greater detail. Maintenance.
In deference to our landowner, Mr. Cole, I mean, I think he's acting in pretty good faith there. He's taken this to committee. He's trying to get the job done, so. Any other comments? Mr. Gotcho.
I think it's in our best interest to allow Mr. Cohen to sell his property or state that he can sell his property by denying an easement. And I think that shines favorably to the
entity purchasing the land, that we're going to be good neighbors and in turn, if we can go and ask them for the easement that we want. Subsequent
Yeah,
ones.
it certainly doesn't preclude that. I mean, good neighbors and good neighbors. I know what Terry wants to do, Mr. Severson. He's trying to get to that little county land.
Is that possible? He's not saying the next landowner might charge us.
You know,
It seems like in this resolution, it's written here that the granted easement can be free. How can we guarantee that the next landowner is not gonna charge us? We're given one for free, they can purchase.
Mr. Chair, this is Sean. May I speak?
Yes, John, please.
I just want to echo some of the concerns I've heard, and my main concern is we're spending $20,000 in taxpayer money to do some fixing up on the bike trail. I don't know if that's the segment exactly, but I do think it's in the county's best interest on behalf of the taxpayers to make sure that there's maintenance worked out with any easement that is granted. So that's why I won't support this tonight, because I'm not hearing that any of that's been worked out yet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Carroll.
Yes, I'm not familiar with the details, but I'm hearing something about the county needing access right in the same area, so I'm hoping that. And it's better before I would vote on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would support this as well, except I need to know if we have the authority to do it, if it's legal. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. McKee.
Can we table this until
We can postpone it.
that way we can have. It still is kind of like. That we can get a legal opinion.
You're making a motion to postpone. Mr. Van Dyke, are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone, but I want this worked on. I mean, we've got to bring this back with all the i's dotted and the t's crossed and the explanations given. First, Mr. Nee, I will recognize my former classmate, class of 65.
Landowner with two crossings adjacent to the co-implement area is, I would say that the county can't really, I would think legally, isolate land on the other side of Plain River Trail without some very good reason for it. Because in this case, this proposed trying to sell, and in my case, I have a big cornfield down on one side, and the next owner down my part of the alley, it's a hunting shack down on the end of the cornfield. So we do need, and this involves quite a bit of money, not just $20,000 trail, which I am highly favor having the trail, and I highly favor Richland County Parkland. So that balance all of these things.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion to postpone and refer back to Fourth Council, Parks Committee. Former county agent, if you'll help me out with the name there down. Steve Colson. Mr. Severson, one more comment.
If this amendment or this proponent does pass, being the chairperson for the county parks commission, I'm willing to call special meetings as much as we need to get this figured out and resolved with our attorneys, Mr. Cole, maybe potential buyers, who knows, so we can all be at it, just ourselves, Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
Well, to do that.
His promise has been made.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I just like to make a comment on this whole thing.
Mr.
it's a real sad state of affairs when you own property in this county and to no fault of their own, now they don't have access to it. Things aren't thought out very well, are they?
No, there are repercussions, aren't there? Thank you. Okay, a vote on postpone, but all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, I'm gonna say the ayes have it. If anyone questions that, does anyone want a roll call vote? All right, Mr. Cole? I apologize for the slow machinations of the county sometimes, so. Pardon? He's right. Oh, there he goes. Okay, I'm gonna move along. A resolution amending resolution number 19-135 regarding Pine Valley Wage Plan amendments. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-126. Now therefore be it resolved that resolution 19-135 is hereby amended by adopting the following underlined language. The pay plan is further amended by way of market adjustment by moving the starting step from step 3 to step 6 and the top step from 5 to 8 for the following positions of registered nurse manager. Be further resolved, this resolution shall be effective on July 18th of 2021. This resolution is being offered to you by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you. Gentlemen, maybe you could move to the back or take it outside.
There's the bar.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, you've heard the resolution. What is your pleasure? Mrs. Call makes the motion, seconded by the guy in the middle again, Mr. McKee. I will call on Tom or Clint to give us some background here.
I'll defer to Administrator Rislow if he is present to talk on the specific.
Administrator Rislow of Pine Valley is here to talk to us.
This is just correcting an omission from the original 19-135. The omission was leading to some misunderstanding by the county's payroll benefits specialist.
Okay, this is the omission part. Stay aboard though for discussion on 19 and 20. Okay. So this is correcting a mistake, I believe. Barry, can you fill me in here?
Well, I believe that the original resolution, that's that 19-135, the registered nurse manager was left out of that scale, right, Tom? Or not indicated or something?
I didn't realize so much explanation would be needed on this. The 19-135 moved the top step for the RM manager to step 8. We omitted saying what the step of starting would be. And so this is merely saying the start.
Okay.
The complication can be then when Tom hired for the position to recruit again, rather than sliding the entire wage rate up, it got extended and then still was obligated then to start at a lower step. Is that correct in memory?
Okay. So all those in favor of this resolution correcting an unintended error signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, a resolution amending the Pine Valley pay plan. Mr. Kalish.
Okay, so this will be resolution 21-127. It is quite lengthy, Mr. Chair. Did you want me to read, half the? the half the page and then the other half, or no? I can, but it's lengthy.
I know it's lengthy.
Mr. Chair, perhaps Mr. Rizzo can give us a synopsis.
Well, I'm sure he can. If it's okay with everyone, I'll have Mr. Rizzo give us the highlights.
Our presentation to Finance Committee for our budget for 2022 was done and approved. We recently had enough positions become available that we've been stressed with the ability to take new admissions, which affects our revenue, which is a big deal to us and to the Richland County. I reached out to Clint that I needed a shot in the arm, no pun intended, and was asked to come up with ideas to address this. And one of those was to implement everything that we have in our 2022 budget proposal early. So this, when you start talking about such a large pay schedule just before Pine Valley, it affects lots of details and therefore the length of this resolution. The intent being that we don't keep coming back with extra resolutions every other month to clear up details involved in the budget. Our budget does two things that I guess that we're asking for tonight. Is we're asking for implementation of it early to address our staffing crisis. If it's concerned about the funding of this, the funding has been provided by an unbudgeted, unprecedented large increase from the state legislative body that was approved by the governor, effective retroactive July 1st. We're asking to go up an additional step on the wage rate so that our new top will be step 6 instead of step 5. All the rest is just a lot of detail. I'll answer questions on any part of it.
I have a question or no. In this, the reference you make to the increase in government spending amounts to like 12.5% increase annually.
A typical year, we've seen maybe 1 to 3%.
So it's unprecedented. Well, why did they do that? Why in the world would they do that?
They've been hearing and knowing about the staffing crisis all over the state.
And some of the consequences of your staffing crisis would be?
Just in the last 3 weeks, we've turned away numerous referrals. We easily could have had 5 or 6 more new admissions to our facility. Once time, that would provide over $80,000, which we have turned away.
That's revenue that we have to turn away.
Due to our staffing.
And you did make reference to a wing possibly closing at Pine Valley.
Scary thought, because we had a brand new facility, this built and opened 5 years ago. We hate to think of that, and currently, because of staff pitching in together, working extra overtime, people from other departments even trying to help with finding people for units open, but it's quite a challenge right now. And as I said, the finance committee, a significant part of our overtime is worked by 3 different individuals who are of grandmother age.
Has the staffing crisis?
We typically see in the nursing department between 25 and 35% turnover, which is far below the industry average. Sometimes the industry average can be 50 to 100%, depending on what community it's in. So, and this year, I look at the numbers, knowing that this question might come up. Turnover is no less than it was, no more than it was last year. Just the new hires that we're getting in an interesting committee to open and positions. Most of them are just shooting the on-call hours. They can choose their hours. So when we lose full-time people like we have, we don't fill them. We're in the situation. My colleagues across the state, there's very few that are in a good situation with staffing. This is the new norm of all towns right now.
Medicare budgeted. The classified.
Some of those do, this one does not, but speaking personally with Senator Mark Lee yesterday, who was at Pine Valley, was clear, clear from the notations from the finance committee when they voted on this, that it was largely due to the staffing crisis that they're doing nursing home for at this time, not to mention dealing with the COVID pandemic. That's just to correct some Medicaid funding.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. C.
I think everybody watches the news. Last week, I've seen 2 or 3 news programs in which discuss the nursing shortage, not just here, not just in Wisconsin, but across the country. Some states, they're paying as much as $10,000 bonuses to get people to come to work, and they still can't come to work. The reason is a lot of the folks in the healthcare industry are stressed out, they're burned out, they're afraid they're gonna get COVID, and many are getting it. They're making they're working tremendously long hours because of the shortage. And so this is I think a prudent proposal to try to shore up the problem. I fully support it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if you give me a minute, I can express the concerns that have been brought my way and my thoughts on them.
Okay, Mr. Langgraf.
My thoughts and comments, Mr. Chair, kind of go towards not only the resolution before you with the Pine Valley pay plan, but also with the premium plan. Since we talked about this in finance and personnel, a lot of folks have come to me with concerns on fairness. And overall, my response to it is, in fact, it's not fair. And that's put in context of how it's impacting wage compensations for Pine Valley versus a general employee. And general employee is anticipating about a 6+% wage increase for 2022 with the budget as it is right now. Pine Valley would be experiencing that 6% this year in addition to a potential 2% increase plus premium pay. It's not fair, and I would not argue that it is fair. Employees at Pine Valley will be getting higher increases in wages than the general employees and our union employees, depending on how the collective bargaining agreement ends up with ratifications. So without it being fair, you're in a position of justifying then the unfairness or the inequity. And some of those things, as we've talked about today, is state and federal funding aimed at nursing home and assisted living facilities, with Pine Valley having access to federal CARES funding and targeted by the American Rescue Plan funds. And those things stand in trying to justify, again, the unfairness or the inequity. As we just talked about with the state Medicaid rates, a lot of those decisions on that increased rate was to specifically, again, target your nursing home and your assisted living facilities. The challenges also that have been brought forward is comments talked about as the operational challenges with retention. As he said, retention is now impacting our ability of census and our revenue gathering. As Supervisor Seep indicated, the market challenges in place across the region, across the state and the country. Department of Labor has an estimated 1.1 million in shortage across the country for nationwide, and of course exacerbated by the pandemic. Now, will this influx of money solve Tom's problems and our Pine Valley problems? The answer is probably it will not solve all those problems, but it is an effort to at least to try to do something and trying to keep up with other folks in what the industry are doing. The decisions on this and this next resolution, the impacts that they are going to bring, and like everything, when we're trying to solve one problem, we usually bring up another problem, is it is, of course, having unfairness, angst, and the feeling of other employees then being devalued or being undervalued. The other thing that is going to result to it is it will put added pressure on your administrator, on your finance and personnel to continue, personnel committee to continue meeting the compensation goals as we build the 2023 budget. Additionally, current budgeting practices that we have in place are reliant on Pine Valley revenues. With our relationship with Pine Valley, about 1.5 million in debt service annually is levied that goes to pay for the improvements that we have out there. In 2022, our general operations right now are based off $500,000 of revenues and off of the surplus funds that we're asking Pine Valley to give back to us. Maybe asking is the right word, but directing them to give back to our general funds to subsidize our other operations. So you know, we're dependent on them being able to be operational. We're also looking at them to be a revenue flow to subsidize other functions. If we don't have that in place going forward in the future years, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of reductions in other operation expenses. As your administrator, some of my goals in supporting this tonight are Pine Valley, again, to keep those revenues flowing in order to keep our current operational needs at hand. And also setting budgetary expectations with Pine Valley to meet desired revenues versus limiting operation expenditures. And essentially, you're getting to tell Tom that with this additional autonomy, it's going to become additional expectations on a revenue flow back. And it sounds like the relationship of it being more of a shareholder of looking for a return on investment than them being a department. But in our current budgeting practice and our financial relationships, that's kind of what it is. And that perception is out there and it needs to be monitored, but that's where we're marching. And then finally, it is also a goal of mine to have Pine Valley in a position when we approach where we can financially separate from Pine Valley. This is years off, a decade off, that the facility is in a good operable functioning order so that that county board at that time would have a reasonable choice before them to try to do that in that facility to be able to maintain operations and continue that services to the community, potentially outside of the county. Not saying that that is where the county is going, but again, to be able to put the county in a position of when we reach that benchmark, that you're in that position to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Wow.
Mr. Frank?
So, a question, does the Medicaid rate, is that increasing for 2022? Do we know if that's going to stay stable or that's going to be increasing?
Typically, when the state does a planning budget for nursing homes, it will do something that first year. Maybe 0.5%, maybe 1%, like I said, in the second year, typically hardly see anything. The unprecedented nature of this is the 12.5% threshold for this year, but 12.5% again next July 1st. This unbelievable recognition on their part about the situation nursing homes are facing. Take care of Wisconsin's vulnerable elderly.
So that has then the potential of an additional 12.5% next July. Does it?
Well, it's there, it's in the budget.
Well, it is in the budget already.
And we already put that in our 2022 budget.
Are you ready to vote?
Sorry, I have a question. So then, is that?
Mrs. Glassman, speak into the mic, so those,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes. Don't
Oh,
turn your
I'm
head.
sorry. Thank you. Does that stay then unless they, I mean, they would just either increase it, they're not going to like, for example, go back.
Good question, they don't do increases. I want to thank publicly Tammy, the payroll benefits specialist at the county, who worked with us on the wording, some of the language involved with these two different resolutions to make sure that they were something that she could effectively follow and get done in the time frames that we were requesting.
Okay, we still need a motion to place this before us, although we've been discussing that at length. Ms. Gentis and seconded by Mr. McKee. Okay. I'm ready to vote. All those in favor of this pay plan resolution signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, then that takes us to the next thing. And that is the premium pay rates for Pine Valley employees, establishing premium pay rates for Pine Valley employees. Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number 21-128. Now therefore be it resolved that all Pine Valley employees be paid premium pay of $1 per hour for all hours worked from January 3rd of 2021 through August 28th of 2021. And be it further resolved that in order to be eligible, employees must be on the payroll as of October 23rd, 2021. And be it further resolved that the Pine Valley administrator be excluded from receiving the premium pay Be it further resolved that the premium paid will be paid on the pay date of October 29th of 2021. And be it further resolved that the estimated $150,000 cost of this proposal will be funded using $112,500 of American Rescue Funds and $37,500 from Pine Valley Operations. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage and publication, and this resolution is being offered to you by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? This is called. Seconded by Mr. McKee. Holds the record for seconds. And perhaps we could call upon Tom to, and Clinton to fill us in on this one too. So,
I was hoping the resolution spoke for itself. The American Rescue Plan speaks to 6 main things to spend it on, and premium pay is one of those. Nursing homes is the top of the list when we look for that. We could ask for up to $13 per hour for the premium pay definition in the plan, but we want to ask for $1. We're spreading it over January through August. Because while people were beginning to come out of the pandemic and cases were going down, our staff continued to have to abide by strict regulations this whole past time. So this is a thank you to them. It's meant to help with retention as we have people considering getting tired of the whole thing and considering something other than healthcare working.
thank you. Mr. Landrick, did you have anything to add?
I do not, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay. All right, you've heard the resolution, you've heard the explanation. What's your pleasure? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Tom, and drive carefully on the way back up north. Number 21, resolution amending and reissuing relocation order for the Tri-County Airport, Mr. Kalish.
This will be resolution number -129. Now therefore be resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that authorizes the county administrator to sign and issue the attached relocation order for the Tri-County Airport Drainage Ditch Project, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication and shall supersede actions taken in resolution 21-106. This resolution being offered to you by Finance and Personnel.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. McGuire? And Mrs. Rutherford seconds. And I can give you an explanation. The ditch had to be moved a little bit because one of the property owners decided he wasn't going to budge. So this is a relocation. It's part of the process. Okay, got it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Resolution amending resolution number 2183 regarding a petition to the Secretary of Transportation for airport improvement aid. Mr. Kalish.
Yeah, this will be resolution 21-130. This is also, quite a lengthy resolution. I think it may be, easier for Mr. Landgraf to explain the changes to this because it's very minor to my understanding.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
In addition to include into the petition to the secretary, additional language that allows us then to include in the project, install precision approach path indicators on runway 927, clear obstruction, and any necessary related work. So in the raising of the runways and the taxiways and the drainage ditch, this is also then included in that grant fund availability to replace the precision approach path indicators into that funding. And precision approach path indicators, I think as they were described to me, as a set of lights at the end of the runway. If you're too high, they're red maybe, and if you're too low, they're white. And so you want to be able to see both colors when you're coming in from.
Want to be just right. So for that landing. Yes, so we have a motion. Mr. Van Landine Mrs. Reuter, so you can need a new second. All right, airport needs new pappies, as they're called, as I learned the other day, pappies. So, in the grant. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. A resolution approving a roof replacement project of the historic courthouse. Mr. Gaelic.
This will be resolution number 21-131. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby given for a project consisting of replacing the historic courthouse roof to the bid of Interstate Roofing and Waterproofing Inc. of Onalaska, Wisconsin, in the following amount of $272,000 for necessary roof deck repairs and complete replacement of existing tiles with asphalt shingles. Be it further resolved, the funding for this project shall be covered through American Rescue Plan funds and 2021 short-term borrowing funds. Be it further resolved, that the county administrator shall have authority to enter into a contract with Interstate Roofing and Waterproofing Inc. of Onalaska, Wisconsin, and has authorization of up to $15,000 to cover contingency expenses for the project. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the Property Building and Grounds Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. Cosgrove, seconded by Mr. McGuire. Need to put a new roof on the old girl. Comments, questions? I understand we're gonna replace the tile with shingles. Yep. Gotcha.
Was this not part of the hailstorm replacement?
No, it was not.
Okay. And the second question is, how much is, recovery at the funds and how much is?
Okay, I will, Mr. Langrick, are any part of this recovery act fund?
That's $30,000 of it is from the short-term borrowed funds, which is Fund 92. The remainder of it is from American Rescue Funds. We have approximately 1.6 million of that currently apportioned for lost revenue, more discretionary type of spending. This will be cutting into that 1.6 million.
Thank you. Ready to vote? Mr. Manning?
Yeah, I was just interested in the number of bids we had on that. I'm sure that's not something that anybody can do, but was there multiple bids?
We had two bids that came in under deadline. And our guided, or our recommendation came from our consultant, entertaining with Waterproofing Incorporated in Alaska. I'm sorry, from Alaska. But we did have two bids that came into this.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted. A resolution number 24, a resolution approving the purchase of two Buffalo Terra Station 51210 RH storage devices. Mr. Gaelish?
The resolution number 21-132. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the purchase of two Buffalo Terra Station 51210 RH SAN-NAS storage 48 terabyte devices with redundant power supplies and enhanced warranty from JCOT Technologies in Baraboo at a cost of $15,293.70. Be it further resolved, funds to carry out this resolution shall come from the Capital Borrowing Fund, Fund 75. Approval is hereby granted for the MIS Director to sign the purchase agreement with these items. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall be effective upon its passage and publication, and this is being offered to you by Finance and Personnel Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure?
I vote for approval.
Mr. Turner moves, and I'll take your motion as a second, Mr. Sue. That's all right? Is that okay?
Behind Mr. Dirk.
Well, it's too late.
Oh, that's fine. I like well, I think.
Okay. Do we have a discussion on this necessary, Mrs. Scott? Do we need any explanation? Mr. McGuire?
I'm afraid I just don't know what is a Buffalo Terra Station.
Yeah, I don't either, but
These are high capacity servers, or images from our sheriff's department body cameras. I hope I'm using the right jargon stored on them, as well as some of our MIS our GIS imaging, for all of our property images. Having the dual systems allows us that ability to do, backup and not leave us in the same situation where we had a server fail. We did not have capacity to back up the image. We had to contract out then for at least $7,000 for a data recovery effort to try to get it. So it solves a problem with a Buffalo that was overdue, and it puts us in a better position in the future where if we have problems, we can solve our problems by ourselves. Did I say that correct? Director Scott?
Mr. Severson.
Just like to make it known that the Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee, all the members on that Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee also reviewed this.
Thank you.
We discussed this.
Okay. All right, we need 2 new storage facilities for all the data. All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Number 25, a resolution approving request for proposal guidance regarding specification design for an emergency radio and tower project. Mr. Gamish.
This will be resolution number 21-133. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the specification design for the radio tower project shall meet the 95/95 coverage recommended by True North Consulting and Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee. And be it further resolved, that the county board understands that initiating a release of this request for proposals is a commitment of future debt service in order to complete the project. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective upon its passage in publication. And this resolution has been offered to you by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Mr. Cosgrove, Mrs. Call, seconds. Okay, this takes us a little bit further down the road in this massive project that commenced years ago. We know it's coming. Does anyone want to make a comment, Mr. Frank?
My question is, does this limit what the RFP would be for other options? So would this be the only option in 95/95, or are they going to be giving us other things to look at so we have a picture?
And I'll refer to Mrs. Scott. Go ahead.
This is just committing that we want to move forward. The proposals are not written, we've gotten no votes. We're going to request that the vendors go out and write to the best of their spec. If the vendors come back and say, we cannot meet the 95/95 coverage, the best that we can do is 85. And this is what we would recommend, then we would certainly consider that. But if we do not start asking at the 95/95 level, then we have certainly done a disservice, I think, to our constituents.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah, when she says 95/95, it means 95% coverage, 95% of the town, yes.
Yeah, from a portable radio.
Right. Right. Okay, almost, yes, Mr. Carroll.
The wording makes it sound like they are guiding the designer towards option 3 as opposed to any one of the options. Am I misunderstanding the wording?
No, what we had to decide though was the level of commitment that the county board was willing to support. And that is what we're doing here tonight.
We're asking you to commit to good coverage.
I understand, but when we look at the cost between options 1, 2, and 3, there's significant jumps. And if this is locking us into option 3, then I want to make sure that's not the case.
Well, it may be the case, but.
Mr. Chair, this is Sean. May I speak?
Yes, you may comment.
So at the September 17th meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee, we did hear a presentation on all 3 options. And if anyone wants to go and see what those entail, there are maps and there are cost estimates. So to Supervisor Caro's point, option 3 is estimated. This is of course, not certain because bids would have to come in, but it's estimated to be 7.7 million. That's the highest option in cost. Option 2 was 5.8 million, and option 1 is 3.3 million. There's a lot more detail in the presentation, so I don't want to go into that unless that's necessary, and I wouldn't be the one to answer all that anyway, but I just wanted everyone to know that the cost estimates have been considered by finance and personnel, and anyone can review all of those.
Okay, thank you Supervisor John Murphy Lopez, and Sheriff Porter is standing in the back and he has some comments. Go ahead, Sheriff.
I just wanted to kind of ask what Sean said. These are cost estimates, these options we have. We don't know what it's gonna cost. And so we're just looking to move forward so we can get a better idea. So the 95, that may not be realistic for us, but it sure would be good to shoot for that. And, I think, as Barb said, we'd be doing it a service if we didn't try and shoot for that. May not be realistic, we may have to settle for less, but I certainly think it's worthwhile to shoot for that.
Thank you. Short of bulldozing down our hills, I don't know. Not for that. We just want to move ahead with it and shoot for the best that's possible. And if we can't afford it down the road, then we can't afford it. But I don't think we're spending any money right now. We may be in the future, but Steve.
If I could make a comment on that and take me in the back if I'm going too far here.
Go ahead.
Scott, but part of the language that we're saying here is understanding with going with that higher level of coverage, Steve, that we're talking about is an obligation of that higher dollar amount. Concerns would be though, if we say we put out a specification design, we're gonna have engineers putting in thousands, if it's not tens of thousands of dollars on specification design to try to bring a bid forward. So they're gonna be invested into it. If we take those bids and we decide now we can't do this, we're going to lose a lot of credibility with those vendors. Down the road, if we try to reissue another specification design or request for proposals for bids, it would be questionable if they're going to recommit to look at our project and to give us a bid again. So, we're kind of walking down, I don't want to say blind, but we're walking down a path of understanding that we're obligating ourselves potentially for a significant bonding thing. It's going to be painful. Is it going to be necessary? I would say that it is necessary as an essential service to your community. But that's part of that last or that second, therefore be it resolved, is an understanding with releasing that specification design that you're making a relationship with these vendors, and if we back out on our end, they may not come to our calling later on down the path. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did a great job, but having heard all of that, we can't. It's the difficulty of dealing with public entities such as ourselves, is that vendors, they ask you, they want to nail you down as much as they can because they want to plan ahead and know what they're dealing with. But by the same token, our difficulty is promising future boards that making decisions for future county boards. I have a problem with that, and I don't like doing that. But that's the dilemma we're in. We have to tell them what we want so they can go out for bids and tell us what it's going to cost, and even if it's feasible in our landscape, we don't really know that. So we're kind of we got to make a decision here to go forward or not. And I think we have to go forward at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. C.
Yes. Just a comment, just look at ourselves historically. And the county was founded, they built a courthouse. And they passed that obligation on to future boards. And built one piece of real estate after another, the highway department, the new project that we did a few years ago. And we moved from the old highways, Pine Valley, the community services building, the purchase of land for sand. Those are all necessary things that we have to do to maintain a functioning service, a quality service to our citizens. And in each of those cases, we are obviously passing on those obligations to future boards. So we shouldn't feel guilty about passing on that. It's a matter of responsibility of planning for the future.
In other words, we're simply doing our job.
Correctly.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing me back to reality, Mr. C. Okay, I'm ready to vote. All those in favor of this resolution? Asking for specification designs for the emergency radio tower project, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the resolution is adopted. Number 26, a resolution celebrating Hispanic American Heritage Month. Mr. Kalish?
This will be resolution number 21-134. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the county board hereby celebrates Hispanic American Heritage History Month. And be it further resolved that the county board encourages residents to learn about and embrace historical and cultural contributions of Hispanic Americans in Richland County. And be it further resolved that the county board welcomes Hispanic Americans, immigrants, and migrant workers to Richland County. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication, and this resolution is being offered to you by the Rules and Resolutions Committee.
You've heard the resolution. What's your pleasure? Ms. Gentis, seconded by Mr. Van Landijk. Hispanic American Heritage Month. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted. Do we have anything for appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do you have anything to report to us, Administrator Langren?
Oral report, your Finance and Personnel Committee have engaged in over 20 meetings so far this year. They have accepted and are bringing forward, or accepted, and I will be bringing forward a proposed budget to you in October. That budget will be posted in the paper and able to be viewed with by yourselves here in the next week. I would also like to bring your attention to keep your eyes on Rules and Resolutions Committee, Strategic Planning Committee, and Committee of Finance and Personnel Committee. They're going to be taking significant steps here in the next few months to get things in position for the next session. As we go through the budget process and in a continued transition, there's still a lot of desired benchmarks to reach, and as well as a lot of things to consider as we build already a 2023 budget. We'll be making some big decisions again, building towards the goal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Busy time. Mr. Kalish, you gave me several pieces of literature, not exactly correspondence, but
I can review them if you'd like me.
could you please?
Yes, I will. So included in your package was a letter received from Tony Kurtz earlier this month, so you should all have that in your iPads. What wasn't uploaded was this publication that came through from the Pipeline Association for Public Awareness. They must not have realized that we had updated county board members, so it came to some of you. Those of you that didn't have your name on it, there's extra copies on the table behind you. There was also a newsletter from Southwest Regional Planning Commission that I did email to all of you earlier today after it was received. So those are the correspondences I have to report.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, takes us down to item number 30. Mr. Yes. Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Supervisor Seamus. Under correspondence, I'd like to thank the various county board supervisors and their committee and former county board supervisors, the county administrator, and other volunteers that helped out with the Richland County Fair a couple weeks ago. It was greatly appreciated. A lot of hard work went into that. One happy with the had this volunteer spirit that we did have. So it's greatly appreciated. A lot of long hours.
It was a great affair, great affair. Okay. Motion to adjourn? Okay, Mr. McKee, seconded by. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.